Hi everyone, I'm Susie. Today this video is going to be a follow-up of the video that I did 4 years ago, life after being a widow. I want to check in and see how everyone's doing and tell you a little bit about my life. And hopefully you went on with your life. I've received a lot of response from this video. In fact, this video got 33,000 views, which none of my videos have ever gotten this amount. And I did this video 4 years ago. So I hope that everyone that's lost their spouse has went on with their life in time. But let me know how you're doing in the comment section. I know this is a difficult thing in your life, but and I don't know if you know, but I am a retired nurse, and I've been with a lot of people who have passed away. Plus, I lost my daughter, and I can tell you, losing a child is much harder than losing a spouse. Now, some may not agree with me, but it's and I find that most people that have lost a child or a spouse will totally agree with that. Whether you agree or disagree doesn't matter. That um, my husband died in 2001, and he wasn't my first marriage. He had a good marriage, 17 and a half years. Um, that I always felt like I had enough love in my heart that I could make a new life. And yes, it was hard at first because you got used to doing things with your spouse and no longer, all of a sudden, you're independent. So, one of the things I stress, and I stress in even the grieving videos, is, uh, and that, actually, the generation before me, men usually did all the financial. That is a big mistake for the reason they, your husband passes away, you have no idea how much money you have. You don't know how many bills there is to pay, and that's devastating in your life. Excuse me. That never happened in mine. I'm very independent. Even in my first marriage, my husband wanted me to handle the finances. So um, I could not personally live with somebody who took over and uh, I didn't know how much money we had or, if there was a problem. But some women have had to deal with this. Their spouse dies, and like I said, they're devastated. Some lose their homes. So, important thing is it should be a 50-50 thing. You both discuss financial problems. You both know how much money, how many bills, liability, and do this together as a team. But I think I actually stayed single about a year and a half, and I remarried. Um, I never, like I said, I always felt like I could love more than one person. Not everyone feels that way. I realize that. And but the one thing I like to stress too is everyone has advice. Let's face it, it's easy for us to hand out advice if we're not in that person's shoes. Don't, and I said this in my original video, don't let someone tell you, oh, you have to grieve for 2 years or 3 years or 1 year. There is no time limit on any type of loss. There is no time limit. You take the time that um, you need. Now, when a loved one passes away, another thing I really believe in, okay, you need maybe a few weeks, to be alone. But don't isolate yourself. That's the worst thing you can do. When you start staying home and you don't get out and get around people, eventually you won't do it. You'll just stay home and you will have a very lonely, sad life. Uh, Join a church if you don't want to join a church, an organization. Volunteer work. There is lots of volunteer work that you can do. Yeah. Makes you feel useful. Makes you feel like a rewarding feeling. Remember, you're a good person. Don't ever put yourself down. You can make a new life and you can find a way. Like I said, you need the original time to grieve. That you go on with your life. And the 5 stages of grieving. Sometimes you may go back and forth 2 or 3 times before you finally, it's almost like a freedom. You accept it. You miss that person that you love. You miss that person. Another thing on the video, I think I did 2 of them, but on the main one, I also said that sometimes it's easier to go on with your life when your spouse passed away than in a divorce. And I actually had someone who wasn't very kind with the remarks. And I'll follow through on this one. And the reason why I said that, say you're married and you have children together. And now in my first divorce, we remained friends. So there was no hate type of thing. Um, but when you have children together, that divorce doesn't end it. It doesn't end it. You will be exposed to your ex the rest of your life. And, say you have children and your spouse has visitation rights. So, and if you have, let's say, a friendly divorce, that's not difficult. But if you have a really terrible, hateful divorce, that never ends. In death, it does. You know, that in a hateful divorce and you have to deal with that person, um, your stress goes on. Even when your children are grown and become adults, you still have that, you know, a stressful thing, and your children might take sides. So that's what I meant when I said death is actually easier than a divorce. And if this person happens to watch this, I hope she understands. She just evidently thought my remark was horrible. But, and I think recently to the time that I did that video, and that was 4 years ago, that she had at that time just lost her spouse. So I can understand. It is hard. And what I mentioned, the hardest thing for me was going to the grocery store. And that sounds stupid, I know, but we did everything together. We bought groceries together. But I've always been a very independent person. And I could survive without, I'm not saying it wasn't lonely, but I was very active in church. I also, at that time, I was a deacon, and then short time later, I was asked to be an elder. So I had a church family that, and things were different in 2001. Let me tell you, um, I had a church family, so that helped. I didn't isolate myself. Um, in fact, at that time, probably if I had kept up my nursing license, I would have probably went back into nursing. But when my husband was diagnosed with lung cancer, and then it metastasized to his brain, I wasn't able to keep up my hours. I wasn't working at that time, but you could take classes and keep up your hours and still maintain your license. And I got most of the tests done, but the last one, and ironically, that last one was on cancer. That at the end, when he was on hospice, and the hospice aide comes in for an hour or two, the nurse maybe once or twice a week, but you're on your own. And I think hospice is wonderful, so don't get me wrong, but it was like 24/7. So I wasn't able to keep up my test and get my hours. So that I didn't plan on just staying home and doing nothing. I remained active and being around people and you know doing something with your life instead of staying home watching TV and munching on junk food, which I love junk food, but munching on junk food and gaining weight, that doesn't help your grieving. So, um, like I said, it's not easy, but we are born and we're going to die, and eventually we're going to lose loved ones. It's reality. And also, I'm not pushing my faith or religion on you, but when you believe in the Lord Jesus and you have faith, it does help. In fact, my husband was a believer. He sat and read the Bible every night, and it helped him get through because he knew he was dying. And it helped him get through, um, the hardships. Um, he was in our living room in a hospital bed for 3 months, and he was coherent most of the time, but the last couple of weeks he would go in and out and even accuse me of not letting him get out of the bed. Well, he could no longer walk, and he also had MS besides the cancer, but the MS never actually completely crippled him. But as his cancer progressed to the brain, he was not able to stand or walk or anything. So I didn't argue with him. I just said, okay, honey, I'll pull down the side rails. Let's get out of bed. And it was kind of sad because he looked at me with, the sad eyes. He knew he couldn't talk. He knew he couldn't do it. But another thing, see, and I know I have a medical background, so I'm a little bit set in my ways as far as how I feel. To me, when you love somebody, you don't want to see them suffer. You don't want them to suffer. And I've always felt that as humans, we're very selfish. We don't want to let go. But I learned that um, you let go. I wouldn't want to suffer. And I don't think any of you would want to suffer. So no matter how much you love them, you let them go, and they would not want you to stop living. I'm, they would not. So some of you out there who have watched my original 4 years ago, if you're still around, I hope you're doing better. I hope you went on with your life. Um, I know the one lady who I originally did the video for, um, taking care of her husband for a long period of time, really played havoc on her health, and she ended up with a heart problem. But she went on with her life and did some traveling, and um, was amazing. I mean, she came out of it. And as time goes on, you realize that you wouldn't have wanted that person to remain and be in pain and suffer. But like I said, we're humans. We're selfish humans. So again, don't isolate yourself. Get out and mingle. Like I said, the first few weeks, no, you don't want to. You don't want to be around people. Um, and when somebody passes away, kind of the sad thing is, everyone gets a hold of you. You see family, friends, and then a few days later, they go on with their life, and you're kind of isolated, ignored. What I did one time, I had a neighbor who lost her husband. And instead of sending flowers or sympathy card or anything, I waited about a month and then I went and knocked on her door and invited her for lunch. And it was kind of really neat because we made it a monthly tradition. Once a month, we went out to lunch, and that was my way, and it really helped her. And she went on with her life, and so, like I said, you take your time for that. That first couple of stages that I mean, you're in denial, you're angry, you go through all of that. But once you settle down a little bit, you get out, don't isolate. I've heard people say, well, you know, maybe it's better if they stay by themselves. No, it's not. When you're by yourself, you're always thinking. Plus, get a hobby. If it's crafts, I don't care what it is, crocheting, knitting, sewing, painting, um, do something. Don't just sit and watch TV. And especially right now with some of this stuff on, if you're not depressed, you're going to be after you watch some of it. So um, I hope and pray that each and every one of you that's going through this terrible time in your life, that you have the strength to know how wonderful you are, how precious you are. Remember, God didn't make mistakes. We all have a purpose here. Find that purpose. You're an individual. You can be what you want to be. You don't always need to have a spouse. And it's wonderful, yeah, to have a spouse. And I make no bones. I've been married several times. It's wonderful to have a spouse, but you can survive by yourself. And I have, let's see, I have been probably by myself for the last 15, 17 years. Lose track of time. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy. I joke about, hey, if I don't want to cook, I don't want to cook. I can eat a sandwich if I want. So, and it took me time to get to the point where I didn't need a husband. I still like guys. They tease me about I like cowboys, yes. And I always say I'm not dead yet. I can still look, but I am very happy by myself. So you can do it. Even start decorating a room. Change your room. Um, you don't have to keep everything the same. Go buy a new bedspread. Um, you, decorate different. Do something. Make your home yours. Doesn't mean you didn't love your spouse. Doesn't mean that at all. It means that you went on with your life. Guys, life goes fast. Life is short. Enjoy each and every single day. When I wake up in the morning, I say, thank you, Lord, for giving me another day. And remember, I am no spring chicken. And I don't even need to say my age. A lot of people know my age, and I am old. But I love life. Um, each thing we go through, for me, it makes me stronger, and I have a lot of faith. So God bless you, each and every one of you. And why I'm doing this, I am hoping that everyone who sent me comments and who made comments in the video, doing good. And I hope even if you're still by yourself, I hope that you're enjoying life. And again, remember, don't let anyone tell you how to live your life. They can give you suggestions, don't get me wrong, but there's no set grieving time. Whether you take 6 months, a year, 5 years, that is totally up to you. So, God bless you. I'm going to end this. Bye, everyone.